Visit to Tate Modern, one of the students said to me, "I bet you've been here hundreds of times." And the answer to that is definitely yes. It's not a bad thing, as every time I go I see something new. The collections change quite often, but the students change constantly. I might be running after a Year 8 student that bought in a football tucked into his blazer and being a bit over enthusiastic in the galleries, or asking students to get off Snapchat and look at the art, but mostly I'm really interested in conversations I'm having with students about exciting work. And one artist always divides opinion, and that's who I'm going to talk about today, Cy Twombly. So here he is, looking rather unassuming in front of his artworks. This is him later in life, obviously, and you can see some of his work behind him, and you're probably thinking, well, what is that? Why is it important? And why are we listening to our teacher talking about this man? And here you can see some more of his work installed at the Tate Modern on level 4. And this is the energy and process display, and this is his artwork called Bacchus, which is a series of large paintings with red scrawly paint over them onto untreated canvas. Now you're probably thinking, well, who is he first of all? Well, Cy Twombly, his actual full name is Edwin Parker Cy Twombly Jr., and he was an American painter, sculptor, and photographer. He was born in 1928 in Lexington, Virginia, and died in Rome, in Italy, on the 5th of July 2011. His paintings are predominantly large-scale, freely scribbled, calligraphic, and graffiti-like works on solid fields of mostly grey, tan, or off-white colours. Twombly often quoted poets such as John Keats, as well as classical myths and allegories. He was central to the art world at the time, hanging out with such greats as Robert Rauschenberg, who he shared a studio with, and Andy Warhol. You could say he definitely had a rock and roll lifestyle. And you can see here how his work has developed over time. So Twombly's early drawings from the 50s and 60s show an accumulating interest in gesture and movement. These works are fairly minimalist, with backgrounds of painted black, grey and white, giving precedent to the development of line. Practicing motion on paper, his hand moved crayons across thin surfaces of wet house paint, or the side of a pencil smoothly across bare paper, almost like a physical exercise. Developing pattern through repetition, he was gradually carving out the trademark scrawl that he became so well known for later on in his career. The continuously curving lines move off and back through the paper filled with some stamina, almost as if it's sort of wild, overgrown grass or plants, or sort of this very animalistic movement. Now, he is known for controversy, not just because of the content of his work, but for some things to do with his lifestyle as well. One of the Bacchus paintings that I just showed you earlier on sold for an incredible $15.4 million recently. His work really does divide opinion. Kirk Vanderow, a former curator at New York's Museum of Modern Art, wrote in 1994 that Twombly is the original "my kid could do this" sculptor. And you know, that is something that we do hear time and time again about his work. In fact, the article that I've just got on the screen now says, "Is Cy Twombly what's wrong with modern art? Is he the person that's given modern art a bad name?" Since Cy Twombly's first major exhibition in 1964, the abstract painter's scribbles and scrawls have polarised the art world. Detractors place him firmly in the "my child could do that" school of contemporary art, and defenders respond to the elegance of his design and praise the childlike quality of his abstractions. Now, this is why I'm a fan of Cy Twombly. I absolutely love the audacity of his work. As an educator, especially in the visual arts, sometimes to me it seems like my job is just to tell people a right and wrong way of doing things. Cy Twombly is a great disruptor of that. His work is visceral, aggressive, deliberate, anarchic, and these are all valuable human qualities that we try to educate out of children, and they're so important to art making. Twombly has not only ripped up the rule book, but taken the art world by storm in the process. If you are a fan of Cy Twombly, I know that we are going to get along. This painting is named after the Greek god Bacchus. He's a nature god of fruitfulness and vegetation, especially known as the god of wine and ecstasy, and you can really feel that energy, that excitement going through this painting. Red being the colour of wine, but also of blood, these canvases encompass both the pleasure and violent debauchery associated with the god. This contrast, I think, is echoed in the painting's combination of euphoric loops that soar upwards and these vermilion floods of paint that ooze and cascade down the canvas. The unfurling gestures of these paintings were made with a brush affixed to the end of a pole, which really lends itself well with the vitality and scale of the work. When looking at them, you can imagine the chaos and energy involved in making them. You can also imagine the gasps and disgust of the traditionalists and bourgeois gallery goers when the work was very first unveiled. I would say that Cy Twombly is definitely my hero because his work infuriates, and that is the sign of a good artist.